Hello retro fans! We've got a new firmware version for the Ultimate 64 and this is a very exciting moment because I'm always looking forward to new firmware releases for the Ultimate 64 because there are still a few things here and there that need some fixing, and one major thing that really bugs me a little bit is there is with the older board revisions, and if you have a serial number, that's there's a sticker on your expansion port cover, and the last 3 digits of this serial number, if this is lower than 540, then you're probably affected by this as well. And mine is 308, and therefore I really have this issue. And the issue is, to be precisely, this a bug of the CPLD. That's a kind of controller chip that handles the keyboard and joystick input signals. And there's a bug that prevents you from, let's say, playing games like, for example, Buggy Boy and Ponyboy Strikes Back, because in the original C64 there is some kind of mirroring of the input registers for the keyboard and joysticks, and the older Ultimate 64s, they do not follow this very precisely, and therefore if the game is not looking at a certain address for the joystick input, for example, if it's looking at a mirrored address, for example, then they won't see any input signals from your joystick, from your keyboard whatsoever, and therefore you simply can't play the game. And my interest was to see whether the update is kind of fixing this by implementing some kind of workaround or something like this. And in order to do so, I went through the whole procedure of testing before and after. And now let's have a look how this is going to look like. So the very first thing, as mentioned already, is the game Buggy Boy. And here you can see I've plugged in my joystick to different ports. I mean, basically 2, and nothing is working. So, and the very next thing, I went for the also already mentioned Bounty Bob Strikes Back game, and I was testing whether the joystick is working there, and you may already guess the result. It is not working there because it's the very same issue, and just by switching the game we are not going to fix this. And here the same procedure. I tried to press a couple of buttons and tried to get the game running, but nothing has worked so far. And it looks a little bit static right now, but if you look very carefully at my finger, you can see I'm trying to press the fire buttons and try to get the game to react, but no, nothing happened. And I'm just trying to find the joystick port. There we are. Same effect. So even space isn't working, none of the function keys are working, so it's really a board related issue, because this game and already shown Buggy Boy is working fine on a standard C64 board or on a reloaded MK1, MK2 board. And in order to check whether my joystick is working, I launched up the Joystick Tester program, which I've used a lot in the past as well. And still struggling to get my joystick into port 1. And here we can see the joystick is working fine. So check this. I went on for the next test, and this is as usual Mssiah, because my initial intention was to use Mssiah on the Ultimate 64 because I was looking forward to, let's say, a superior audio quality, because we got rid of all those noisy original ICs usually populated on the C64 boards, and I was looking forward to perhaps use different SIDs or the Aldi SIDs for making some noise, some sounds. And the main issue with Mssiah on the Ultimate 64 is that you are able to launch the different applications and you are able to run them, but you can't leave 2 of them without crashing. And this is a little bit annoying because Mssiah tends to save the settings when you exit an application, and if you exit Mssiah at the end with shut down your C64, then your settings are getting saved. And yeah, I was just trying to get some noise out of monosynth, and then I was trying to leave monosynth, and here the Ultimate 64 hangs up, so nothing reacts anymore. And this is really sad, because as I mentioned already, if you have done some changes to your patches, for example, and if you want to continue your work later on, then everything is lost at this stage. And the second application that's not working is Drummer. Here we have the very same issue like in the monosynth application. If we're going to change some settings here in our nice kind of 909 base machine, then Mssiah hangs up at the end of the application if you're going to leave the application, and therefore our changes are gone. So, and the question is, will this be fixed by the newest firmware release? And I've taken the one that's on the official Ultimate 64 page, and there is some kind of a second firmware made by a guy from the Forum 64, call it Marcus C64, I think, and he implements some minor changes into the firmware as well, but I was going for the original release just in order to have a common base. And now we're going to flash the firmware if I'm able to find them. Should be somewhere under U, and here we have update 110, and now we run the update. This will take a couple of moments, because this has to transfer a lot of information into the FPGA image. Now it's asking whether we want to reset the configuration, and basically it's not required, but I think it is much safer to do so, because sometimes, especially if you have major changes like we're going to see later on for SID addresses, for example, and something like this, and this won't match the update, then it is probably a good idea to start from scratch and really do everything from a very fresh point of view. And well, you might already guess it, perhaps. I'm going to test whether my previously tested games are working, but in order to do so we have to set a couple of settings here to the standard so that we can continue where we have started. But as a very first test, I'm going to test whether the games are working, and we start with Ponyboy Strikes Back, and same procedure as before. I plugged in my joystick and I tested whether the game is reacting to my input, and as you can see, nothing has changed so far. There's still no joystick and keyboard available in this game. And this is going to be the very same for Buggy Boy as well. And I've tested Mssiah again, just to see if we have some changes here. So this is indeed a little bit disappointing that we do not see any progress on this. I may have to check the bug tracker whether this has been reported already, or what's going to be the main issue for this. But it's really a little bit pity that we as a user kind of have to hunt down things like this, because I expect, especially for this price tag, a board that's really a one-to-one replacement of a C64 board, and therefore it's really a little bit tricky. Since the firmware update of the Ultimate 64 hasn't fixed the issue with the joystick and keyboard control thingy, mirroring, pulling, whatever we want to call this, I decided to go for the update of the CPLD of the Ultimate 64, which is only required for boards with a serial number lower than 540, I think. So, and there are basically two methods. So one involves a Raspberry Pi, and for the other methods we can use an Easyflash 3. And I decided to go the Easyflash 3 way because I wasn't patient enough to download the Raspberry Pi distribution which we're going to need for this, and I had to type in a lot of commands, and so therefore I thought the Easyflash 3 is the easier way to go, and well, the name is saying that already. And as a prerequisite we need to check whether the Easyflash 3 is running on the Ultimate 64. It is detected by the PC we're going to use, and it is programmable. So I have already opened the Easyflash 3 and I set the jumper to program mode. So basically they are set to data mode most of the time. So you may see this here a little bit better, data, and this is proc position. So I set those 4 jumpers to proc, and now we can insert this into our Ultimate 64. And if we're going to connect this, we have some very nice Windows USB sound. And if we're going to check whether we can find our Easyflash 3 in the program menu or in the device menu, we go to Device Manager, and here at the end of the list we should have the Easyflash 3. If this is not going to work on your PC or on your Windows 10 machine, I have to be specific, then you can use the so-called static tool, and here you can install a WinUSB driver, which is kind of a common driver for a whole bunch of different USB devices. I'm using this for programming the Keyman 64, for example, as well as the Overlay 64, and therefore it's quite comfortable to use this because you do not have to install an unsigned driver on Windows 10, which is going to be a little bit a pain in the butt, and therefore we're not going this way. But the Easyflash 3 has been detected, and therefore it's available. And now we're just going to power on the Ultimate 64 to see whether everything is going to start. So let me just switch over to this view, and here we are. And now we can see that the Easyflash 3 has started, and it's available as USB device. And as a very last test, just to be on the safe side, we're going to perform an update of the CPLD of the Easyflash 3, and then we can see whether everything is working fine. So now it's doing something that looks pretty geekish, and it's actually writing a lot of data over to the Easyflash 3, and then at the end of this whole procedure we should get a message that tells us that everything is all right. And if we have done so, then we have to do some wiring between the Easyflash 3 and the Ultimate 64, because we are going to use the Easyflash 3 just as some kind of interface. And as we can see, just going to make this a little bit smaller, like this, and then we can see all TDO outputs match to the expected values. So during the update process, the tool is checking whether the values that has been written are read back the very same, and everything is working fine here right now. So, as I said, as the next thing, we have to perform a couple of changes on the Ultimate 64, and therefore we're going to switch off the Ultimate 64 just to avoid any troubles we may cause with our action. And I think I forgot to mention that I'm basically following the procedure that has been documented by let me check. No, it's gone. Here we are. By the Joker at Forum 64 as usual, and it's a German description, but if you use Google Translate it should work very fine as well, and if you just follow my video then it will work anyway. So, and as I said, we need to do a couple of things here, and I think one of the first things we need to do is to get the keyboard off, because it's actually in the way of what we're trying to achieve here. And now we have to connect 4 cables, and I picked the very same color just for the sake of the exercise, and that I'm not going to mix up anything. And for this we need to get off the jumpers, and we start with the middle row left hand side pin, like this one, to the first thing, and this is going to be on pin 2 on this connector, and the next one is going to be yellow, second pin from the left, still in the middle row, and it's going to be the first pin on this, and then we got green and blue, and green is going to be very close to the red wire, and blue is going to be to the last one in this row as well. So this is done, and then we have to connect the Easyflash with the PC, that's already done, and then we need this file U64 CPLD 12.svf, and we need to copy this to our directory where we have our update. So I think it is somewhere attached to this directory. Here we go. And now we can go and search for it on my drive. And here we go. And it is required that we copy over this file to this directory. And then we can go back to the description. I'm not sure whether we have to switch on the Ultimate 64. It's not mentioned here, but well, let's give it a try without it. If it's not mentioned, then there's probably a reason for this. And now we have to type in ESP, oops, 0x8738 U64 SVF, yes, okay. Everything is right. So let's see whether something is going on. Something is happening, okay. So a lot of whatever TDO outputs didn't match to the expected value. So I think we may have to switch the board on. And then let's try it again. All TDO outputs match to the expected values. So this sounds very successfully for me. And in order to check this, let's have a look whether our Ultimate 64 is still working. And it pretty much looks like this. And we may have to attach our keyboard again, but before we do so, let's get rid of the wires and see if this is going to be a good idea. And safety first, let's... Oh, it's doing a lot of things. Okay. Then let's do it in the old-fashioned way. Disconnecting the wires again. Bringing back the keyboard connection. And while it's still off, let's set back the jumpers on our Easyflash to data mode, so that we're not overriding anything by accident. So let's test whether Buggy Boy is working now with the CPLD update. And as we can see, yes, the joystick is working. I can maneuver in the menu already. And let's quickly jump into the game and see whether the car itself is working as well. So as you have seen, it is a quite easy procedure, and beside the fact that we really had to switch on the Ultimate 64, everything was working fine. And now let's complete 5 laps of Buggy Boy, so that you can see that this is one game I can play a little bit in particular. But well, I'm just kidding. I'm really done with the testing of this update. I'm really happy that the CPLD updated hasn't bricked my Ultimate 64, and that I am up to the same level as the newer board revisions, ranging up for 541 and higher. And basically now everything is working fine. And if you have any questions, as usual, feel free to use the comment section. Thank you very much for watching. Feel free to subscribe. It's absolutely for free and absolutely painless. So I really appreciate this. And well, see you for the next episode. Bye bye.